r/ask Reddit. What was a perfectly normal situation for you in the 80s 90s that the younger generation just can't relate to? I had 20 phone numbers memorized minimum. I still memorize the most important ones, and still remember the childhood ones I had memorized that were really important to me. My home. Best friend's home. Sitting by the radio waiting for your favorite new song to come on so you could record it onto a cassette tape, and hoping the jackass DJ didn't talk over the first 45 seconds. Spoiler alert, he always did. I tried to explain this to my daughter. She's 10. AMD her eyes glazed over and I think she didn't care or didn't believe me. She was like, okay mom. As someone who was a child, she just doesn't care. Having arguments about factual information and having absolutely no way of determining who is correct. That's actually why the Guinness Book of World Records exists. The managing director of the Guinness Brewery noticed people in pubs were arguing about who was the most this or that, so he decided to compile them all into a book so pubs could have it on hand for reference. This sounds like a fun movie to write and direct. I was thinking the other day about how I applied for out-of-state college, 1989. How did I even do that? Did I write to them and ask for an application, then fill it out and mail it back? When I applied to graduate school, 1993, how did I even know which schools had my program? Did I go to the library or something? Sitting here in 2020 imagining doing those things with no internet, it seems impossible. But since I don't even remember how I accomplished it, it must have been pretty mundane at the time. Sounds like a ducking hassle if you ask me. I remember having to go register for classes in person. You'd get a random appointment time and go to college to see a registration person. You hope you were lucky enough that all the courses you needed to take weren't full yet. If they were, you'd need to find another course on the spot, changing your whole schedule and life. Or using the telephone version of registration later. Calling someone's house and having to speak with their parent before talking with them. Nothing like calling a girl you're into and getting her dad on the phone. Or having a girl call the house then your mom or dad just stands in the doorway making fun of your lame attempts at being cool. Going to a restaurant and being asked would you like to sit in smoking or non-smoking? There were smoking sections on airplanes. I can remember, as a kid of about 6, being super sick with a chest cold. My parents had to work. So my grandpa came to stay with me, and just like Perta Falk in The Princess Bride, he sat by my bed and read me stories, all the while chain smoking. I was coughing my ass off, and he was trying to comfort me while filling my room with smoke. Nobody even thought about it. Shit was weird in olden times. Mom probably gave me some codeine-laced cough syrup when she got home. Original lean sipper. Going out into the world with no cell, a map in hand, hoping to find the new address you've never been to, and then in addition to that, hoping the people you were going to meet up would get there. If you got there and your friends weren't there, the most you could do was ask the business to lend you their phone or walk to a payphone and call your friends' house phones to see if they picked up. If they didn't, you had no way of knowing if they were late, selling you out, or dead. The concept of getting lost on a car ride is pretty much extinct now. I think about all the times I had to print out directions from MapQuest to find someplace in advance. Now you can just type in an address or say something like gas stations near me and you get step-by-step directions with an ETA. Which also means the trope of are we there yet is made an irrelevant question as the kids also have phones and can see exactly how far they have to go. Going out as a kid from dawn till dusk without your parents being able to contact you or know where you are, then knowing you have to go home when the street lights come on. We also had to be within shouting distance. Man, could our parents yell, we'd be way off in Timbuktu goofing around and suddenly someone would realize there was the far off cry of someone's mom, echoing in the summer breeze, abruptly ending our fun. Damn it. My mom had a brass bell she'd clang. We lived in a valley and the sound from that thing would bounce off the hills like a pinball. There was nowhere it couldn't reach. I still have it here somewhere. I should get some brass polish and clean it up. Someone calling the landline and disconnecting the internet. Being deafened by the sound of the internet. Don't pick up the phone. My Blink 182 song only has 1.5 more hours to download. Convincing your sibling to get up to change the channel. on the TV with separate dials for VHF, channels 213, and UHF, channels 1451, that you also needed to whack on the side once in a while to fix the vertical stabilization. Standing on the TV wrapped in foil being the antenna. Going with your parents to Blockbuster to rent a movie and hoping a copy, VHS tape, was still available and not completely rented out. I remember the local video rental place renting out VCRs along with films because most people didn't have one at home. I was very young at the time and the practice ended shortly after as VCRs became commonplace in every home. That's how you made your copies. I'd like to rent these 8 tapes, a VCR, and also buy that 8-pack of blank tapes. Getting a new TV guide each Sunday with the newspaper and obsessing over it for hours highlighting what shows movies you wanted to watch, calling the movie theater to get showtimes, shopping at Sears, edit. Holy guacamole, where did you all come from? Thanks for the updates. Silver and other awards too. And making your Christmas list from the 800+ page Sears catalog. Being on a phone call with someone using the home phone when all of a sudden someone in the house picks up another phone and tells you to get off. Better yet, party line with that one a-hole neighbor who keeps their phone off the hook so nobody else can use the damn phone. Hanging out at the high school after school was out with no supervision. I was floored to learn kids can't do that now. I spent hours sitting on the floor in some back hallway with friends, not wanting to go home, doing my homework, waiting for my ride to get out of practice. Oh, yeah, I worked on the school newspaper. After school we had full reign in the graphic arts room, including the dark room and the screen printing machines. Other kids would come in and make custom t-shirts and develop pictures all the time. I was in a shitty garage band, and we often practiced after school in the band room. I mean, it says band right in the name. No one noticed or cared. Calling collect and saying your message really quickly instead of your name so the other person doesn't have to accept the call. Having to put the TV on channel 3 to play video games. I still do HDMI 3. There being nothing on television. I watched the Weather Network for longer than I should when I was younger because it was better than soaps and sometimes nothing was on. With streaming services and even YouTube shorter videos like TikTok you can be watching new content 24/7. Little overwhelming. We had a local access channel that was just 3 colored horizontal bars. In the top bar, text told you the time and the temperature. In the bottom bar, text told you the contact info for the cable company. In the middle, you could pay to have a screen of text. The movie theaters listed movie times. Restaurants listed the specials. Parents would post birthday congratulations for their kids. Weirdos would post rambling screeds about the mayor. Sometimes you'd sit through 24 screens before learning that the movie you wanted to see had already started downtown. But you'd know that Donna's granny wished her a happy 13th birthday. Wondering who invented the hot dog and being unable to find out. My mom always said, well it must have been Mr. Hot Dog, or whatever. Same joke every time. Not having a camera all the time. Privacy. And if someone took a photo, likely only 7 people would ever see it, they bothered to get it developed. Ordering from a catalog and carefully measuring yourself to ensure that it fits, then placing the order and waiting weeks or months for it to arrive. Let's not even talk about back ordering, buying a cassette tape and only liking a single song off the new album. Anytime the power goes out when you are sleeping is basically guaranteed to mean your alarm clock isn't waking you. This is almost specifically 90s for me when digital alarm clocks replaced wind up once. Also, I mostly wouldn't know if the power had gone out. The whole house didn't beep when it turned back on like it does now. I live in the middle of nowhere. Buying the album because you like the single they play on the radio all the time, only to find out you don't like any of the other songs. Having to wait or be somewhere you don't want to be, like visiting your mom's friend's house or at the bank with nothing to distract you but your own mind. My parents never bought me a handheld game, nor did she have room in her handbag for my books, so I just had to be in the moment. I remember riding with my mom to her cosmetic store. If I was lucky, she wouldn't make me come in, and I could just sit quietly in an empty car for some period of time. If I was lottery winner lucky, she'd leave the radio on. Spending $15.20 on a CD as well as spending entire days combing thrift shops, pawn shops and flea markets looking for CDs and cassettes on the cheap. Spending $15 to $20 on a CD for one song. I feel like kids today will never know boredom like I experienced when I was a kid. We were poor and didn't have any video games. There was no Candy Crush on your phone. No Netflix. If your friends were busy, you'd just have to make up your own game or watch one of the 5 videos you actually owned for the 347th time. But even that wasn't always possible if your parents wanted you out of the house for a while. So you'd just walk around hoping to run into some kids you knew. I also remember my sister and I would watch MTV, wait for our favorite music video to come on, then record it on VHS. We had 2 tapes full of music videos. I wish I had those tapes now. There were some bangers on it. This is more 90s early zeros, but the ability to just not be reached sometimes, and that was okay. It stresses me out that there's this social pressure to be available at all times, and people get upset with you if you don't respond to a text fast enough, etc. But as a kid we'd call each other on the home phone sometimes, and if you didn't pick up it was just assumed you were busy and nobody was actually upset with you over it. Obviously I love being able to keep in contact with friends on a more regular basis, but the constant pressure to be accessible to people 24/7 or you're some kind of bad friend is too much, and it really does a number on my anxiety. I miss being able to call, text message someone back at my leisure and not have to have a good enough explanation ready as to why I was ignoring that person. I've intentionally made myself like this again and I feel much better for it. I'd use social media but only on the computer. I'll log in for 10 minutes or so every few days to check and reply to any messages. People have got used to me being like this and usually take their time to reply to me, but it means we exchange 1 or 2 quite long messages a week instead of a constant stream of short ones. I don't feel pressure to be constantly available anymore, and people don't feel pressure to rush replying to me either. If we do need to talk in real time, then that's what phoning or meeting is for. Summertime. Leaving my house as soon as I gobble down a bowl of Lucky Charms in the morning. Spending the entire day outside running around doing more or less what we felt like. Swing back home for lunch. Then immediately going back outside until the sun set and no one thought it unusual or was particularly worried about where we were. I was 7. Hell, I walked myself to and from school starting in 1st grade, and my elementary school was more than a mile from my house. For kindergarten my mom walked me to school. But by the time I was in 1st grade she knew I knew how to get there, and I usually walked by myself, meeting up with friends along the way, going on long car rides and stretching out on the shelf in the back window of the car. Or those who were lucky enough to have a station wagon just ducking playing in the far back cargo area the whole trip. You let kids do any of that now and you'll have Karen calling CPS on you. All of this. I miss the sound of moms yelling their kids' names out the front door. Every time I kick my kids out of the house they come running back in scared of bugs, including butterflies. I used to love making witch's stew with worms, or doing leaf races in the gutters. Meeting at the arcade. I miss arcades. Dave & Buster's and their overpriced games concessions don't count. Raves. Real ones. Calling an info line which gave you the location of a map point where a guy in a car gave you the location of the party. Then driving around in the worst parts of Detroit with the windows down listening for the bass thump until you found the party. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.